Hello and welcome to the Pain Podcast with the Pub Scientifique. My name is Bart from Buchem and I'm a pain specialist physiotherapist and I'm the host today for this session with Tim Beams, founder of Le Pub and friend of us. And hey Timmy, good day. How are you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, so thinking of subjects that we've came across that we think have impacted us as a clinician, and thank you for all your feedback we've received. That's the reason why we just do a big jump in the environmental enrichment, expanding the world beyond pain, and that's where we're going to take it from here. I think environmental enrichment is one of those concepts that almost every clinician intuitively understands. Perhaps you're already doing it, yet I think it would be good to make it more explicit and use it as a treatment framework is actually possible. And Tim just mentioned a project to me, which really blew my mind. Like a UK based institute had basically built the top floor with gardens and all kinds of environmental, funky, crazy, good, nice, lovely stuff around. So for people to get treated within. So the sessions were not in the rooms, they were actually in a very highly enriched environment where you could explore. And you can think of that concept. And that's what we're going to do today on this
Mm.
session, trying to figure out how actually this type of enrichment actually how it works and how we can use it as a framework and how we might already doing it, but by doing it more explicitly, we probably get more out of it. So Tim, I know, as I said, it's very intuitive. How does it? What's the intuitive bit for you in this environmental enrichment in the context of therapy for people with chronic pain?
Yeah. So, well, how about we set out what I think where it comes from, certainly from my understanding, and then build from there. So, from an animal study point of view, animals were often fairly isolated in cages, pretty limited opportunities to explore and play and like little stimulation really. So the enriched environments for the animals were deliberately designed with the opportunity to explore and play and interact and have some sort of stimulation and interaction with others as well. So yeah, so you can sort of see immediately how that might have some importance in how we work. So on one level, and we've talked about this quite a lot, haven't we, about affordances and pain and a shrinking world and how, over a period of time, people can begin to avoid certain situations. And I think, it's fairly intuitive that that's what ends up happening. If this is a problem and it causes more suffering and more distress, then why do I carry on engaging in it? So we really often see someone's field of affordances shrink. So what's possible in their world, the opportunities, the people who they interact, the places that they go, etc., change. And what we're going to talk about is, at one level, in understanding that and the impact that might have, but then the importance of how we open that up and how we work with, if you want, an enrichment project and see value in that as well. So, for me, it could be fairly, seemingly fairly small changes. I was with a patient on Friday, for instance, where we were just saying, is it possible to get out in the garden? Is it possible to have your tea in the morning in the garden with a bit of sunshine on your face? And they had a beautiful garden, and you could see nature coming in. How can we create opportunities for that to happen, but also see the value? And it's not just us seeing the value, but it's also our patients seeing the value as well in it. When often people come and what they want to do is they just want pain to go. And what we might be offering certainly in this respect, we might be saying, okay, can we build in opportunities to interact with other people, to be able to explore different environments, to find ways of being a bit more playful, explorative, etc. And although that might not force, a reduction in pain, it's certainly creating a condition where that health well-being can be optimized, and alongside that there might be a shift in
Yeah.
some of
So
those
we're not
negative.
talking about a pure behaviorist approach, isn't it? The background of affordances as it largely has come from a different area, um, like the ecological psychology, if I'm correct, and which is a really interesting ecological psychology and active cognition theories that sort of have emerged over the years and have been there for a while. And that's the intuitive bit. And I think philosophers have always been thinking, oh, there's all this neurobiology stuff, and why are we doing this? We can see the true problem of suffering may not be the pain itself, but it may be what it causes. And I think affordance is what I've seen, and just in addition to stress this, that it's not something, it's a capacity issue. So you're unable to think of. So when a therapist advise you for sitting in the garden with the sun on your face, having a cup of tea, you could have think like, couldn't you thought about that? Isn't it too easy? Is it too intuitive? But what I often see that with people in chronic pain, in particular, it is not an option. It's not there. It's not even within. It's beyond your thinking. It's beyond your imagination, I would say. Um, what I will I'm not sure if this relates to this, but um, I years ago I had a guy that had this. Uh, he had the shit. What's that? He had a lesion. He had a lesion, so he had this upper arm lesion in this nerve in his arm. So just to keep it very simple, he just was unable to feel his arm. So asking, can you still imagining moving your arm? Is it still there? Can you think of doing it? And at some point said, no, I can't. It's impossible. I can't get. So doing anything that relates, for example, doing mirrored kind of therapeutic approach, it was very stressful for him because he wasn't able to get that. So on hindsight, I thought, oh, that was probably on the hierarchy of exposure, probably the last thing you should do. But we talked about that, and it was really interesting. I came across that the imagination also, this is not a brain structure it's not about training it, or it's not like a physiological thing. But affordance obviously is something that we all can see, but it should be taken account as something you just train. Um, I'm not sure. Any comments on that? Do you think I did terribly wrong with my patient and asking him to try to image movements without the ability to do it?
I mean, given our conversations, I'm sure you might have done things differently this time. But yeah, I mean, if someone can't even imagine it, although there are people obviously where, they can't go through an imagery process, although albeit that's quite a small number often.
Mm.
But if you can't even imagine the ability to move, interact, etc., then what's the possibility of you doing it in reality? So yeah, I mean that's one way. And this fits. We've sort of crossed over a few different models, haven't we? But we've talked a lot about prediction and expectation, and if someone just saying, what's your expectation? Do you think you'll be able to? Let's come up with a prediction of how will that go, or how possible is that? Then it's one way of checking in there, isn't it? So, yeah. Although maybe you started high in the hierarchy, as you said, but until you do it, you don't know whether that's too high as well. So you need some sort of exploration and some feedback as well, don't you, to be able to
Oh,
change?
totally. So this also feeds into where the patient may have this inability to think about anything beyond what's possible. But what I see in the clinic is that people do less movement, less socializing, less travel, less spontaneity, less confidence, less exploration. So you can see how the environment becomes improvised. So it's such a disabling issue, which people don't necessarily. It's just not a matter of doing it. It's the deduction of opportunities. So if we bring in this affordances model or this way of thinking, is there, by your knowledge, how do you question it in the first place? How do you make it a subject, or is it something you can actually make explicitly um, as a subject, or at least as a way of dealing with in the clinic? Have any
Yeah.
experience? Yeah.
Well, I suppose on one level, like, again, something we've talked about is the problem versus the solution, isn't it? So, what's the impact of your symptoms been on you in your life? And I think, again, with our conversations, it's about recognizing that any and all parts of that person's life are relevant. So, be it their relationships, be it work, be it their ability to interact in the world in a number of different ways. It all has relevance. Um, Whether they see the relevance in bringing that back as a sort of part of their therapy, of engaging in therapy, is another matter. So I'm just thinking about again another patient. So um, perhaps engaging in movement and activity and exercise isn't always, for some people that it's quite easy to, if you want, sell the idea of, can we get you up? Can we get you moving again? Think of all the benefits this would have. And some people get turned off by that idea, don't they? They hear movement, they hear exercise, and they're like, oh, hang on. I didn't go well last time, or I don't respond that well this time. So there might be ways where you might see the value in getting someone moving, but perhaps you can package it in a way that feels more suited, more appropriate to them. So, could you? I mean, might be, can we find a way of taking a short walk with your wife a couple of times a week, and getting out into nature together, and having a sit and a chat, and so you could package. I mean, environmental enrichment. The idea here is the contextualization of the activity. So there might be. We talk about powering up. You might find that having the opportunity to get out of the house with your wife is one good thing. Having a walk together might be another good thing. Being in nature might be another good thing. What can we get from this, and how might that feel? So in some respects, you're sort of running at least an experimentation of predictions, but then we also need to do it in order to get some feedback and to see, is that something that I do get value from?
Isn't it also a matter of violating expectations? Do
I think,
something you, yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is again, we've talked about this. I think you can do that. It could be too big a shift, like you said about your guy with the lesion in the arm is perhaps, you can ask someone to engage in something that is just too massive, too big a leap, too stressful, and it's very easy to see someone disengage from that. So my personal approach, and I have to say this is, this depends on the people that you're working with, doesn't it? And the capacity of those people. I would tend to look for, I call them low hanging fruits. What are the easy possibilities? Let's get some wins and some successes. So instead of going for a 2-hour walk, how about just walking to the park, or driving to the park and having a 5-minute walk in the park? So yeah, what are the things that we can do that create opportunities for successes, so that it says this is possible next time, or I might want to explore it a bit further next time.
Yeah. So what I found hard in it requires quite um an amount, maybe time, but also effort, I guess, to find this specific patient or individualized approach to come up with something that actually is relevant, that is potentially building affordances for a person or opportunities that they might like. But I wasn't sure. I'm always a bit struggling with whether should it be something that they like, or should it just be something different?
Yeah,
Because
that's a really good question, because I like the way I've um, explain it to someone, and I use the idea of your world shrinking, and I think about sort of everything sort of compacting in on you,
Mm,
and the interesting thing about, and that might include affordances. So there's very little wriggle room in life, isn't there, all around you?
mm,
And what we're really trying to do conceptually is we're just trying to open up a little space in one area, and by opening that space there, you might find that you release a little bit of space in other parts of your life that you didn't realize were limited, or that you didn't realize had some sort of association with that. So
mm.
the way, again, now everybody's different, aren't they? But the way I would work is a more of a co-construction of this. So instead of you as therapists coming up with all the ideas, you're asking to work as a team here, and what seems most relevant.
But probably that's yeah, and that's what that requires a good connection, right? That's and as a therapist, you have to deal with this uncertainty because you're not. It's not really. This is not. Did allow itself not to protocolize you can only address it as a way of thinking. And it feels like this is not. It's never going to be a framework that says you have to do this, but it actually can be when you, for example, think that exercise is a good thing. Probably is for many people, but it depends how you frame it and how you gonna address it, how you gonna. Um, and I just want to run an idea with you, which I've been thinking of quite a bit, and seeing the patients that I've seen. As it feels like when they are, if you can bring the patient in a state of mind that actually allows them to explore in a safe way, then I would say change is an opportunity. And what my first initially is, if they come in stresses, so if they are stressful, they feel distressed when they arrive in the clinic, what's the first thing I probably try to do is to shift that distress to something else, whatever it is. Hopefully something, and then basically doing the same thing you would do anyway, but the state of mind is different. And some people need like a relaxation exercise. Some others need a laughter. Other people go well down on touch. That's how you can see people. If you get it right, yeah, you can explain it. Sometimes explain it. It's a bit like so your sense of being, or your body is responding differently now because you're in a much lower or easier state, or much more relaxed state, and therefore your nerves are firing differently, for example, if they run with this language. But is that the same? If it's just changing the state of mind and therefore creating more opportunities, is that the same as doing something different and then see how it what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think you have to do it to know. But if I can repeat back a little bit of what you said, creating a sense within of maybe calm, of felt safety, of relaxation, of whatever it is that they experience. Let's say of doing some functional breathing techniques together for 5 minutes, and saying like, what, how does your body feel now? What do you notice? Where do you notice it, etc. Now, can we find opportunities to create that in you in other parts of your life and in other areas and with other people? I mean, that would be great, wouldn't it? If someone has the felt sense of what they're looking to create, and then you're opening up the possibilities of saying, where can we do that? You know, what sort of places could we do that in? So it's not always easy to begin with to find, you know, where in your life do you get joy or happiness or calm or
Yeah,
relaxation?
because it's I
It's
find
always,
it a terrible question to ask because
yeah, yeah,
they are feeling most people generally feel pretty shit when they
yeah,
come into the
yeah,
clinic. So what have been your best day of the week? Fuck,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not really into that. No,
You know,
it's
when are
but
you feeling energetic and
yeah,
lively and yeah, yeah, yeah,
not as much
exactly.
as that. Yeah, so
Yeah,
there's another. I see this relevance for shifting that because I do see when people are in that circle of doom and you sort of want to you need to create like an opportunity where they also see where the positives are, right? So it needs to balance a little bit out. It's not just they have managed to come to the clinic and they've managed life so far regardless. So they did something great, well, or very resilient. So there are positives. It's not merely shit and terrible and doom. It must be something that actually keeps them going.
yeah, yeah,
But shifting that conversation, that's also like changing the vibe of a session. And I found that that's probably what I feel like most. If the vibe is not, I just translated to something more, I would say, common language. But if the vibe is not right, nothing's gonna work out well. It
yeah,
needs that, and what is safe? It could also be challenging, right? Or exciting, or a little bit scary, but therefore interesting. I'm not sure whether if you play or so you're working with kids, it's very much the same. So they might be scary because they don't know, but if once they've done it, they give the little push, they're actually getting like super excited about and can't stop doing it.
yeah. I mean, and particularly if there's a little sort of challenge to, and you can succeed at the challenge as well. So it's hard enough that they have to try
Yeah,
and
that's
explore and
you have to make
yeah,
sure that it is a
yeah.
doable task.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but it's a
mean,
fine line.
you know, why should that be limited as well to children? Why can't adults have a bit of play and it's, you know, playfulness and curiosity and exploration within their well-being or within their therapeutic setting? I think that's really
Yeah.
important.
There's another there's a you probably can if you listening right now, there's way of working with constraints. So it's called constraint-based learning. So it will be very similar, like you have to stand up with your right knee should be extended and you can't change that, but you have to stand up, so you have to do different. So you build that, you give a constraint in order to get people more actively involved in finding a solution because they're not allowed to do it in the, let's say, normal way. And I really love that approach because it it actually it's so engaging. Um, and with kids, it's even more fun. Um, you can let them stand up without using their hands or
Yeah,
doing all
yeah, yeah,
kinds of
yeah.
and from and just face down and then just have to turn around. It's such a playful. It's not just play, but it's really observing. And I think that that also gives. Sometimes that's what I see. That's affordances in action where you can see people come in, I can't do anything, and then they leave the clinic like, wow, I've done something I thought I never could. And that's probably not just violation of expectation, isn't it? It's more, I would say that it wouldn't be not be sufficient to to address the change.
Yeah, yeah. How often do you pick the same type of coffee when you go to the coffee shop, or ice cream when you go to the ice cream shop, or cook the same like what if you pick something different?
Yeah. Yeah,
How would that be? You know, it will be different.
those
In what
are
way? Yeah.
exactly. So that brings a sort of like the like small experiments that you can do or advise to be more experimental, listen to different music, visit a place where you haven't been for a while, try a new recipe, visit a bookshop just to hang around, just see how you go. Although but I think you need some success in the clinic to give people the understanding of this concept. Otherwise, it's just yes. So I visit that park you said about. Nothing changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it takes a bit of work and effort to get the concept and make it work for the patient. Otherwise,
And we don't
other
know where, or what part of that will have a sort of strong influence in change. Change might not happen overnight. So it's about creating the opportunities and being consistent with those opportunities over time. But what's instead of a shrinking world, a world where there are opportunities to see a friend you haven't seen for a while, and sit and enjoy a bit of warmth on your skin if the sun's out. It's not out at the moment here, but if it was, and some joy when much and a big chunk of your life doesn't include that. So it's not saying that you're not suffering, but it's just saying that there are opportunities where there's still some joy, there's still some connection, there's still some well-being, and what we're really trying to do is we're trying to enhance them. We're trying to find more of them.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
that's and I talk about the sort of 1% with my patients. I'm saying that I don't know whether this will make a big change. I don't expect it to have a dramatic effect. But if we're consistent with these and we build enough of them, they're little 1% each week where within 100 days or so, we're going to start really noticing a big difference. It's all about some consistency. Yeah.
that's a nice way of sort of step by step approach, isn't it? To keep people in the
Yeah.
moment of the
Well,
process. And
exactly. And if someone's been experiencing symptoms for 5 years, we wouldn't expect it to go overnight. And I don't think they would expect it to go overnight, although they'd love it to. So that's undeniable. If I was experiencing that, of course, I want someone to just wave a wand over me and it will all be gone.
mm,
But it usually, and in my experience, and absolutely sure in your experience, it's usually a bit of hard
yeah,
work,
yeah.
consistency, and sometimes they've tried many things already. And often they've tried many very good things as well. So sometimes it's encouraging them to stay consistent with the things that they've tried, and sometimes it's just a little bit of experimental and exploration of new things as well. So, like you said,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's more an experience than an exercise, then, isn't it?
I would say a big part of environmental enrichment and building affordances is the embodiment piece, is the felt experience. So unless you check in and you notice how you feel, either in that moment or as a reflection, then you've lost the ability to power it up. It's not that it can't have an effect, but it's really important. And the check-ins that I often have with my patients is it's that the time together is that opportunity to reflect and wow, I've really that did make a difference. And yes, the last 2 weeks I've actually been sleeping better, or I feel like I'm building a little bit of fitness here, or I've reached out to someone I've been meaning to talk to for months now, and I've reached out, and it was so nice listening to their voice and then just talking to them. And it's lovely when you hear that as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, it just reminds me of that. If we prescribe exercise, we should not forget to prescribe an experience in that sense, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, I think
Um,
that's a really nice way of looking at it, and what nourishes them, what fills them up, what tops them up. So
yeah, otherwise it's like another exercise, and especially people with primary chronic pain who have gone through, as we know, through many treatment types, have tried and done so many things. I said, where's your list of exercise? It's huge. uh, and they don't necessarily feel as an experience that they either enjoy or feel meaningful. It's that's where I think OTs in generally done a great job in finding that meaningfulness as within embedded within exercise, which it makes sense. If you go cooking, you will benefit because all the benefit that it brings to do it consistently. Uh, but people are generally saying, "Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. It should be properly, or it should be done." But that's probably the barriers they experience, and that's I reckon that's something um, to address as well during therapy. That most of these barriers are not really barriers; they are reasons for not doing it. I'm not a good cook, or I don't like birds. Why should, well, you have try. So in order to get yourself interested and finding, you have to know about the barriers, but we don't have to clean the barriers to make it work, because it's many times it's an assumption of how it should. And as that's also, I think, within affordances and the capability that people have, they have built their own, they have their own assumption of how things should be, and not really flexible in how it could work.
yeah,
And that's a massive shift. And I think that's where therapy should be about, is about how could you get things done instead of what barriers do you have to get rid of, because that feeds into a very biomedical type of strategy. So you have to get rid of it. So just stick a needle in it, use medication, or finding therapy that actually is making you kind of dependent on that therapy, which is the effect's gonna reduce over time. So in
mm,
the end, you will not improve or be more self-efficient in that sense. Yeah.
yeah. We
Just,
get one thing just want to bring us back. I know we're going to close in a second, but environmental enrichment, and we haven't focused entirely on what I guess most people would have thought of as nature. But nature is an important part of this, but it's not the only. So what makes up what is someone's environment? You have your local environment and you have your global environment. And yes, there are important features of nature in the natural world, but what do we inhabit? How are we situated day to day? Your home environment, your relationships, your work, what, like, all of those are key elements of what create that environment
yeah,
for
and
the
if we
person.
can't create it, we just AI it, right? So, it's happening at the moment with virtual reality is another feature of building capacity. Although you can see you can have the ethical considerations over there. It's the same with having a chat with AI.
Yeah.
So many people thank AI for thank you for listening. But there's a risk in it. So you just have to be very careful about prescribing those type of interactions, which it's being used widely at the moment. I don't think we should underestimate. That's probably one of those things we in the clinic. The world is moving fast, and people have. It's not just nature. It's not just friends. It's goes beyond, and um, you can see the data quite consistently showing that people are interacting more with AI and with other types of artificial intelligence that is actually also being appreciated, but at the same time it has its risks, as we don't know actually what it's doing. um, just for yeah, we prepared a few to the questions you can ask patients, and I would kind of reframe it since we have had this chat, Tim, along the way, which I think it's important to say this is not necessarily how you have to ask your patient directly. It's something you have to figure out. So, for example, one would be what brings you joy. what excites you. That may, if it's not the proper, it may not be an appropriate question, but it's something to figure out as in your within your relationship with your patient. The thing,
And it's not always joy as well, is it? It might be calm, it might
calm
be
or
relaxation.
excitement
Yeah.
or challenge, or what is it? The second will be we've framed here was what is the patient curious about? So don't ask it, but just trying to figure out. Sometimes you can just ask it, right? So don't get me wrong here. Or what energizes you, and we have what do you feel most alive, or what energizes you, like you said, in a way that is not provocative, but you have to figure out how that works, and it may take a while to get there. And it maybe if you can answer the question, actually, I think you have come a long way already. It's been probably already have evolved massively, and the last question that we came up with is, what have you stopped doing that you miss? Which is, I think, a critical question, probably, because you need to get an understanding what people used to do. And because of the pain problem, perhaps it's not doing it anymore. So it builds enrichment, not treatment. And therefore, I think that's how we gonna move on forward, and embedding the idea of affordances and ecological psychology in within our frameworks, which is we already did, but we may even do it a little bit more since, and now we talked about it, Tim.
Hope. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything we need to as a take-home message, or did we cover the whole thing?
I think we covered most of it. I mean, yeah, what we can look at: nature, movement, relationships, creativity, learning, play, purpose, novelty, spaces, extra, like I say, all sorts. I mean, I would say what thinking about this does for me is it just, it opens up possibilities, and it says, you can be super creative, super personal and individual. The world is your oyster, really, isn't it? So you're only limited by your combined creativity,
Yeah, yeah.
the team that you're building, and I
Which
think
area,
that's
yeah,
good.
which area will be the easiest to enrich this week?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I've got and thinking about patients, I keep popping up in my mind, but the last person that I was speaking to at the end of last week was the driver. And all he wanted to do is he wanted to be able to get in his car and drive, and like, how cool is that? What do you miss, being able to drive? And like, can we bring that in? Instead of feeling like you need to drive so far, what about just get in the car and put some music on and, yeah, have a coffee in your front drive, or whatever. So we can be super, super creative here, can't we? Of
Totally.
starting to make that possible again.
Great. So we draw the line here for now. For the next session, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks' time, but I'm really excited to have these sessions, as they always help me. So let me be very eco-centric here. I love these conversations because we take a lot along, and these are genuinely clinical driven curiosity from us. So please hang in, join us. And it would be great if you share this podcast with colleagues, people and friends who you think could also benefit. So many people like you guys have been working a lot and hard work within the clinical frontline without a lot of support. So especially to those, we got you back as far as we can. Have a look at our website. There's been a lot on. A few new science sessions have been released over the last month. So have a look. Also on this topic, affordances and embodied cognitions, we've had some amazing people like Peter Stilwell. I think you've come along with, you probably have to help me, Tim, who was on this topic as well in our library. Definitely have a look.
I'd have to have a look. But I've got Anne Mulders in my
And
mind and
Milders, yeah,
sponsor
yeah, and
to think
Milders on the
about.
conditioning and pain response were great. So have a look. There's
There's
plenty.
Cynthia Taylor as well in the background. Yeah. There's many people who we've talked about these sorts of subjects with, and
Absolutely.
helps us in our journey as well. So I think I'm just, Bart, like you said, like this is really good learning opportunities for me and you, and we hope that it can be the same for others listening.
Have a great day.